let's turn for a moment, though, to the implications, again, of abortion. And this, the abortion ruling. And we're going to hear a lot more of this, obviously. And as it stands now, we have 33%, only 33% of the country supports that that ruling. There is this is a story from Dayton. And be prepared for this, because you're going to hear a lot of this. And people say that this abortion ruling is going to cost women's lives. It's not going to cost women's lives because they're going to be getting dangerous abortions. More often than not, that's going to be to the extent that people are going to have illicit abortions in states that ban them, it is going to be a function of medicine. They're going to get pills that are going to provide their abortion in many instances.
And those pills are very, very safe, although there could be some complications, and this would naturally chill them from going to a provider to seek help
without
for
a
any
doubt.
complications.
But in many respects, the level of complications in these instances generally is, along the lines of taking of Tylenol. But here is an example of what you're going to see. Go to the top of this. The parking lot of a Dayton Women's Medical Center in Kettering was busier than usual Monday as patients inside tried to understand their options now that abortions are banned in Ohio after the detection of a fetal heartbeat about 6 weeks into pregnancy. Let's be clear. This is not a fetal heartbeat. It is an auditory representation of electrical impulses that are going there. You can hear with a stethoscope your heartbeat. You cannot hear with a stethoscope the fetus's heartbeat at 6 weeks. Today, we saw a patient in Dayton, says a representative from Women's Med, who has cancer. Her doctors told her she would have to terminate before she received chemotherapy treatment. Well, she can't do that. It's illegal in Ohio now. There are many women who are 15 weeks out, 20 weeks out. She will have to travel to Indiana. A mom brought her daughter in and doesn't own a car. She'll have to rent one to get her daughter to her appointment in Indianapolis later this week. There's going to be women who die because they don't get their chemotherapy in time, because they are pregnant and cannot get chemotherapy until they end their pregnancy. There are going to be women who die because they have ectopic pregnancy ruptures. There are going to be women who die because they have a miscarriage that doesn't fully evacuate. There are going to be women who die because just maybe suicide, and that they can't care for a child, or they don't know where to turn.
Can be women who die. Pregnant women are but at the hands of their partners, number one murder victims.
I mean,
they might die after they have the child that they were forced into having because the man saw having a child with this woman as a method of control and keeping her in the relationship, and then she could die from the continued domestic violence.
And again, exceptions. I mean, it's not hard to imagine that, you're a 14-year-old victim of incest, and what that would do to you and your mental health. But there are going to be women who die, again, with the exception of the life of the mother. Doctors make an assessment, 20% danger, 30%. And the counter incentive is, I don't want to go to jail. That's what's going to happen. And we're going to see more and more of that. Here is a good clip on CNN of just, and here's the thing that I think the Democratic leadership does not quite understand. Okay. And that is, and Atrios brought this up on his on his blog at Eschaton. He was talking about, I don't know if I have it here. He was talking about the Terry Schiavo case. I don't know if folks remember this.
That's probably the first big news story and debate that I remember.
It was in, I think, 2005, maybe 6.
Yeah.
And there was a woman who was in a vegetative state. I think it was in Florida. And her husband had had multiple discussions with her in the past. They had talked about this. If I'm ever in a vegetative state, I want you to essentially pull the plug on me. The parents did not want this for their daughter. By every law, common law, the husband had the power to make this decision. The Florida courts, I think it was, it became a huge debate, and I think the hospital wasn't doing it. I can't remember exactly the sequencing of everything. And the Republicans got involved in this. You literally had Bill Frist, who was the Senate Majority Leader at the time, arguing that he thinks that she can come out of it.
Well, there was a whole right-wing propaganda operation that frankly, it took advantage of her parents' grief, and they had that whole documentary that came out showing her eyes moving to certain responses to prove that it's possible that she comes out of it, which wasn't the case.
And the bottom line is, the question was, who had the power or the right to decide what happens to Terry Schiavo? Again, Congress jumps in, and at the end, as soon as Congress jumps in, I'll read from Atros. Congress steps in, Tom DeLay stepped in, and everyone all over the country could imagine the bug man, Tom DeLay was a former pest control guy, interfering in their lives at the worst, most difficult moments. It's one thing to disapprove of Michael Schiavo, the husband who wanted to essentially pull the plug. Quite another to imagine your medical and end-of-life decisions being hijacked by the freaks in Congress after the normal, which was hardly normal, process had played out. This was there was a long, protracted legal process in Florida. Plenty of people disapprove of abortion in general sense, but not as many really want the reality of a post-Roe world. Horror stories will be there daily. We just read you one. If anyone chooses to report on them, and one political party had better get out in front of it. This is an opportunity for the Democrats to not cower away from this and wait for these stories to get out there and hopefully move. Public opinion is already there, and it's hypothetical. But in the days and weeks and months and years to come, we're going to hear story after story of women dying because of this. Maybe we'll read longer features on women whose career trajectory or life trajectories completely were inhibited because they didn't have the right to control the decision about whether they will have a child. This is a good example of what we're going to hear. He's focusing on the exceptions again because the polling shows there. But again, they can go further.
Provide abortions without consent of parents. Could you imagine having a teenage daughter who needed to have an abortion and the parents didn't have consent?
I could if that daughter was the victim of a rape or incest, in which case your party will allow, not just allow, force that 13-year-old girl to carry her rapist child to her pregnancy to term. I want to just clarify one thing. And I think the vice president said it well. The only difference between Clarence Thomas and the rest of the court is that Clarence Thomas said out loud, and Mike Pence has said out loud, what many Republicans, like Alice, will not say. They want a national ban. If they really believe that what is happening is murder, it is inconsistent for you to say a national ban is not the next step. And Republicans care about life until the child is born.
No, here's the question.
And that's where they drop off.
Here's the question. No, I want to ask this. Well, since
just a final statement, because
I think it's important. The other option is what Democrats want. Democrats are fine with abortion up to delivery. That's unfathomable. That they certainly are. That is absolutely on the table for Democrats.
How many cases of a woman having an abortion at delivery do you know of that have been reported?
Okay, I want to ask you.
How many? Just give me a number.
Democrats are fine with that, though. But
this is a stalking horse of the Republican Party. Instead of giving women the rights, you want to give Mike Pence and Clarence Thomas the rights over a majority of American women.
See, the point is that the right has been able to create these sort of fake hypotheticals. And yes, it is wrong to abort a baby after it's been born. And Democrats want to do this.
They do this all the time, by the way. Torture's okay because we all live in 24 and there's a ticking time bomb and you get to torture somebody in order to stop a terrorist attack. Would you do it?
The dynamic is going to shift dramatically now because they're not going to be able to say the idea of Democrats would have you abort your baby at 9 months. That is not going to carry the same weight when it is compared to women who have died because they've been denied health care. That is not going to carry the same weight when these bans are all actually implemented and we start to hear the horror stories. Democrats should get out in front of this, should make it clear, and they can be shown, essentially like this is the future that's coming. And that future is not going to take long to get here.
The future's now. You see reports from nurses and from doctors saying that they're terrified to deal with ectopic pregnancies and all these other medical issues because they could be prosecuted. They could be fined hundreds of thousands of dollars in certain states. I mean, the effect is already happening. And Democrats should seize this opportunity. I have yet to see any Democrat, except for frankly, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been aggressive in proposing solutions and has been out there. But besides her, the whole Biden administration is expressing chagrin and sadness about the decision that we all knew was coming, but that in 2017, Nancy Pelosi said was no longer really a pressing issue for Democrats electorally. Look it up. We all could see it was coming with the Trump administration and the extremists that he was appointing to the court, but yet they're completely ill prepared. And there are a variety of things that Biden could try to do right now, like putting abortion clinics and providers on federal lands, which Kamala Harris says they aren't even considering at this point. So what is the response? And this is the issue with popularism as connected to the Democratic agenda, because it doesn't matter how popular anything is. Universal background checks, 90% popularity. Abortion rights, incredibly popular in this country. And if they don't seize the power to do it, it doesn't really matter what's popular because they don't choose to do anything about it.
This is, I want to show an example of a tweet by someone who has had real estate on one of the most important newspapers.
He's the youngest op-ed columnist in the history of the New York Times.
And he's been there for a decade?
A long time. As long as I've been reading.
And this gives you a sense of sort of like how the attempt to sort of justify abortion bans beyond the fact that it's just God's will. Go show the full tweet first, and then we'll get to the other thing. So this is Donahues, Ross Donahues, or maybe I'm mispronouncing his name. I don't care. And he talks about taped the argument earlier today. The argument, I guess, is his podcast. Fumbled through some closing remarks. This from it's Michael B. Is it Donahue? Michael Donahue?
Michael Brendan Doherty.
Michael Doherty, yeah. Right. And does he still write? Who does he write for?
The National Review.
Oh, National Review. Okay. And he is also a fundamentalist Catholic. I think Donahues is as well. And I want you to read this. And it is one of I was going to tweet about this, but it is so mind-numbingly childish and unsophisticated, and able to be attacked. Like, I've never seen a statement that is flawed in its reasoning in such a 360-degree manner.
Yeah, whatever your ideology is.
And exactly, it's fascinating. This is what he writes. Pro-choice activists like to point out that you probably know people who have had abortions. And this is undoubtedly true. If you are 30 years or older, I would hazard a guess the number of 30-year-olds in this country who know someone who do not know anybody who has had an abortion, who have never met anybody who has an abortion, it's probably near zero. You may not know it.
Everyone's friends with these murderers.
Pro-choice activists like to point out that you probably know people who have had abortions. They are your sisters, aunts, neighbors. That's true. And it definitely is true. But Rose End has other ramifications as well. If normal people have a social circle of 150 meaningful contacts, they link to something. All right, let's stipulate. 500 acquaintances and about 1,500 people they can at least recognize. Then in a few short years, every American will know, recognize, and interact with a young person who was saved from abortion by last week's ruling. You won't know who they are. In most cases, they won't know who they are. I would say all of those cases probably, but they'll be there. In 25 years, they will be studied throughout your life, going to college, working jobs all around you. They'll be your kids' friends and teammates. Someday, maybe their spouses. They may be assisting you in your old age home. That's the future that is certainly coming into being. That's a legacy worth celebrating. Okay, let's talk about the many ways in which this is one of the most juvenile statements you could make. This is undoubtedly true. If you prohibit people from having abortions, there'll be more people alive who would have otherwise been aborted. And they may be assisting you in your old age home. They may be your friends. They may also kill you. They may also grow up to be
Republicans.
But they may grow up to be really detrimental. They may grow up to people who they are a drunk drive and they kill your family. They may be just like the existence of all other people. There will be nothing in any way distinct from people who have not been aborted. They may, in fact, since you only have 150 meaningful contacts, because that apparently is what a normal person can handle, they may be wasting your time in your life and inhibiting your ability to find your soulmate. They may be someone who says like, hey, I need your help this weekend. And you're like, oh, should I have gone to that barbecue? No, I'll go help them. I mean, I know this sounds ridiculous, but it sounds exactly what like this person has written. And you'll never meet your soulmate. Or maybe like, hey, come with me to this concert. Don't go to that job fair. And you missed the job that could have made you, wildly successful. Or maybe they'll steal your future. Maybe you would have discovered a new computer thing, but that dude did, or whatever. Now that's just on their terms. But then there's another side of which shows how stupid this is. Like, every time any individual decides to practice the use of contraception, you could be denying somebody.
It could be Mother Teresa.
You could, you should never use any type of protection.
No.
At any point, because
in fact, you should never masturbate.
You should, and that's right, because who knows?
Missed opportunities there.
No
fap, because that could be Gandhi.
No fap forever.
Exactly. You don't know what semen, you could be spilling the golden ticket, as it were, for society. I mean, this is so stupid. And so that's two different angles. Here's the third angle. What about the women who will die? And we know there will be women who die because of this abortion ban. And we know that many women get an abortion and then later have children when they're ready to have children. So we're also missing out not only on what those women could have achieved in their lives.
They can't achieve anything.
To the extent that we can expect women to achieve anything, but their potential offspring. We're also missing out on what they could have done. And in fact, maybe that kid that woman would have had would have been the one who's taking care of me in the old age home. This is just one of the most juvenile thoughts. And to think that it's profound and eloquent and put out by people who control this much of the intellectual discourse is shocking.
But good thing they're the people that showed the most concern for the increase in orphans during the COVID-19 pandemic, or the hundreds of thousands of children that are without parents in foster care right now. Good thing those are the same people, right?
We also know that 50% of abortions are sought by women living under the poverty line. And so what we also know is that those kids in 25 years, they'll be going to college and working jobs all around you. They will also be stuck in a cycle of poverty that exists in this country. There is every reason to believe that if you have someone who is in poverty now and they are forced to have more children, that they're going to, the likelihood of their ability to escape poverty becomes minimized.
That would have been helped by the child tax credit. This is the same party that's in favor of that, right?
Well,
that lifted millions of children out of poverty?
No.
Right. I am as angry and as furious. I mean, I was on a plane when we got the ruling on Friday, and I got into a variety of different debates with male family members who were like, "Well, I have faith. I have faith that."
No pun intended.
Oh, I have faith that because the tide of history bends for and most people, but that's not how power works.
The bedtime story generation.
It is. Yeah. Well.
I mean, just some stats. This is from 2021. A new study found that pregnant women in the U.S. are twice as likely to die by homicide than pregnancy-related causes. We just allowed handguns, basically, free run for handguns. So we're doing that at the exact same time we're banning abortion. What's happening is men are deciding, I'd rather be a murderer than a father, and that's going to happen at increasing rates now. So other people we won't know in Ross Douthat's thought experiment are the women who are going to be murdered.
Yeah, and to the point is just that, as angry and upset as I am about the theocrats and the conservatives, we've always known that this is who they are. And we've been talking about this for decades and decades. And I'm infuriated that the Democrats have zero plan to beat this back.
Yep.
Zero. It's always just that our institutions are too powerful, and the confines of them are too powerful for us to do anything. And even when there is something possible within the confines of our institution, I'm too afraid of the potential blowback to do anything about it, because abortion is icky. And that is the same reason why I have issues with, even though in the clip we played a little while ago, that was effective in that context, but for the most part, emphasizing exceptions for rape and incest as a way to highlight the brutality of the Republican Party, because it does not need to be an exception for a woman to seek an abortion. It is a medical procedure, and it is her decision. It's her choice. And so it needs to be normalized, as opposed to be seen as something that can be done in the shadows only when a woman is the victim of something so horrible as rape or incest. No, it should be widely available to that degree.
And I think we're running into a problem here with our medical system, because you're going to extend a right to one medical procedure, but not rights to other ones. Like, I think, like, you look at the different.
Carl Behar wrote about this.
Yeah, I think I saw that. Like, the fundamental sort of symmetry or whatever between the trans debate, the abortion stuff, and just healthcare in general is the fundamental thing that's similar in all those is do not trust people to get their own healthcare and be empowered to seek their own health choices. And, like, that's what we're running into. Like other countries where they have national health systems, like they say, like abortion is just covered by that. We have this whole like Hyde Amendment, bingo bango. Like we're playing from behind so bad here.
Sam's least favorite apple cultivar on the IM says nobody has the right to use someone else's body as a resource. Right? That's what they're arguing here. That we need you women to be vessels to produce the people who are going to work in the healthcare facilities and the people who are going to go to college and working jobs and be your kids' friends. You exist to be vessels to produce these humans. And Sam's least favorite apple cultivar says nobody has a right to use someone else's body as a resource. People die every year because they need a kidney, but the state cannot force kidney donations. All you need is one, folks. Abortion is no different, even if you grant that the fetus is a person, which it isn't.
Yeah, exactly. And dang, what was the first point made? The first IM?
Using somebody else's body as a resource.
Yeah. They are going to, mark my words, one, doctors are already terrified about giving health care for ectopic pregnancies and other complications, which is an abortion. But what they're going to do is if you have a miscarriage, if you are a woman who's poor and they deem that you were not the perfect earthen vessel for that child, they are going to prosecute women. Not only are they going to go after you for abortions, but they're going to go after you if you have a miscarriage because your womb was not sufficiently hostile. That is going to happen. That's going to happen 100%.
All right, folks, we don't have time for any more phone calls. I apologize. We had people hanging on for about an hour, and I'm sorry. I told you up front, very little calls. I said that, right?
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sorry. Just one more point about that CNN clip. They're so full of it about not doing a federal ban on abortion. Like, they've been saying for years. Here's here. I'm going to get pissed. Susan Collins saying, he lied to me. Kavanaugh lied to me. He said he wasn't going to overturn Roe v. Wade, and he did, right? They're doing the same thing now. They're lying and pretending that they're not going to put a federal ban in place when that's exactly their goal. And, like, there's still people like, okay, well, at least you can go to New York and safe haven. Like, no, this is the end result. And I'm terrified personally, like, in 2 years, if that's going to happen. I mean, and why? It's just, how does this happen right now? Roe v. Wade get overturned, and the impulse is still, let's not then take these crazy people seriously. They don't mean what they say. Of course, that's what they mean.
Yep.
Of course, that's what they want to do.
And also,
they're fascists.
And also just like the credulousness of like, I was just like seeing like Jeffrey Goldberg quote tweeting an article in The Atlantic by Elaine Godfrey being like, now potentially that they've gotten what they want, maybe there will be a more robust social welfare state pushed forward by pro-life activists.
Oh my God.
And Douthit saying the same thing. And I'm like, I said this in a similar thing about it regarding something Kamala said on Twitter, but I was like, don't piss on me and tell me it's raining. Like, there is not... 50 years have gone by, and I don't remember a single anti-abortion activist.
Don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining.
That was me. I'm just saying, like, don't say something that it has 50 years of precedence the other way. Like Phyllis Schlafly or whoever was not saying, "Oh, we're going to expand Medicaid once we get abortion overturned,
so
Roe v. Wade overturned."
So insane to even the idea that an editor would even be like,
profound,
like,
Elaine.
Seriously, are you gonna?
But their desire to believe that Republicans are not who they are is so overwhelming. It is the driving principle of that kind of thinker. And the same thing with this joker, Ross Douche Hat. You know, like that is exactly what how they perceive. They want to view the world in that lens so badly that it doesn't matter how many facts they get in front of them.